Talk to me about Pandora. I assume you've been approached by Pandora.
We have, and we actually use Pandora. I have very mixed emotions about Pandora. I love Pandora. I think Pandora has the potential to be the greatest media of all time if they can understand what they really need to do is that they need to service the advertising community, the marketing community. What they do is they sell themselves as a radio internet company. That instantly pegs them into something where now you're looking for results, whether it be a click-through rate or whether you're looking for something that is specific that now you can quantify if Pandora is working, a cost per sale or so forth. I think that's a tremendous mistake for Pandora. I think Pandora should sell themselves as a radio station. Can you imagine if everybody who bought radio started looking at click-through rates from their websites that the radio stations have, or started looking, it would be disastrous for these radio stations. That's what Pandora did. They've completely destroyed their idea by saying, oh, well, we're an internet, we can prove to you, we can get you click-throughs. Well, guess what? The click-through rates are ridiculously low. And that's not important. What's important is they have millions of listeners, and you can pick the genre, and you can pick the age category, and you can pick the zip codes. Now you're talking my kind of statistics. Now you're telling me who I'm talking to. What Pandora needs to do is they need to drill down deeper. They need to get more information on their listeners, whether they do it voluntarily or not. Even if they can get 50% of all their listeners to give up information on themselves, can you imagine the database that this company would have? Another thing Pandora has to stop doing is they have to stop telling people on their own station to stop listening to ads. They have advertising saying, if you don't want to listen to advertising anymore, then all you got to do is pay $3 a month and we'll stop all your ads. So basically they're telling people not to listen to the ads that they're going out and selling, which is completely preposterous in my mind and completely contradictory to the whole concept. What they need to be doing is telling people to listen and stop selling that whole concept. They need to treat themselves as a radio station. I think they have gigantic fundamental problems, but they have gigantic opportunity ahead of them if they take the right choices.
Well, it's interesting you say you paint that as a radio station because, and you paint their primary opportunity as going deeper in terms of database. Because how many stations come to you with an extensive database of a vast quantity of their listeners with detailed information about that database?
None. And as you and I were talking before, I've been telling radio stations for 20 years, build me a database of your listeners. Tell me who goes to casinos. Tell me who needs to buy a car in the next 3 months. Tell me who, and guess what? I'll buy every one of those. I'll buy your radio station just to get those lists. That's all I want to know. I just want to know what people's buying habits are going to be. If we can predict that, then we know who we can market to much more effectively. But when you're talking about just pie in the sky stuff, that's much more difficult, and that's why we do what we do with the media, and we start looking and analyzing the lifestyle and the brand alignments and so much of the day part. What are people thinking? We just put so much into the decision.
With data getting so big, why do you think data for radio remains relatively small?
I just think I think they're struggling on how to capture it. I think that's really what it is, and it takes something like a Pandora who has that ability to do it, to stop looking at the model from the perspective of a musician and start looking at the model from the perspective of a marketing community who they have all these names and who are probably willing to give them their information very easily with some very small incentive, and you could probably find out, what kind of cars they like, when they go to the movies, what do they like to eat, how often do they buy pizzas, Can you imagine if they could start categorizing their information that way, and so that when you make a buy with a radio station or Pandora or anyone, they could say, well, the only people that are going to be listening to your ad, Mr. Domino's, are pizza buyers. Oh my God. Hello. That's kind of how I feel about it.
What's the final question? What's the best thing about the radio experience as an investment partner for you and your clients?
I think there's radio, which is why I think radio will always be so great as a medium. Is I think your ability to change creative on a dime I think is fantastic. It's been a great experience. I think the endorsements and the willingness for radio stations to want to do what we do. We hear it all the time from our radio partners that they love working with us because we push them harder, we make them think more, we give them the opportunity to come up with ideas. One of the things I always say to them is, tell me your craziest, wildest vision that you ever wanted to do for a client. I want to hear it. I want to know what's like, who's that? Like, don't you ever sit around and go, God, I wish a client would do this. That's what I want to hear. Those are the kind of conversations I want to have. So the experience with radio being open to listening to ideas, I think they're, because they're facing so much competition, I think it's changing, and I think, which is one of the reasons I like to deal with the creative people and the management teams at the radio stations, because they're very open to that.
Ric Militi is the CEO and creative director of an anti-agency here in San Diego. And don't try and own that phrase, because they've already got it, called InnoVision. Ric, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.